My name is Kycell, and while my friend and compatriot Ahani penned this 32nd chapter of the Forgotten Minotaur King novel, I am faced with a daunting decision. I pondered Justife Myrink's ultimatum. Was I prepared to finally leave the kingdom of Goldenrod behind, as I either continued my work elsewhere or concluded this section of my scholarly adventure and returned to my university for evaluation and, hopefully, publication? Myrink stood from the dormitory mattress she was attempting to relax upon. She made stern eye contact with me, her white mouseling fur mildly bristling, and her large rounded ears twitching with curiosity.
If it is too soon to decide, you chose a poor time to tell me of your library master's plans for you. I suppose if we succeed in retrieving the mayor's son, only my position will be compromised at the castle. I could leave with Mayor Kind and his son.
She stroked her chin contemplatively at that last idea, but a smirk crossed her face, implying she had something else on her mind. She rearmed herself in her traveling clothes and began to head for the dorm's doorway. She turned at the last minute and addressed me once again.
Come with me to the Goldenrod University. We'll tell Valois of your plan, along with Kind, and see what course of action he believes is best, unless you yourself manage to make up your mind.
Turning from me, she drove her gaze to Ahani Rao, my half-dwarven stenographer, who was penning down the events of today as I divulged to her before Myrink's return. She looked up to Myrink, and they shared a knowing glance for a second I didn't fully grasp. I admit, during these last few days, I hadn't been there for Ahani, but if this exchange meant my primary source for recording events from my text could potentially leave, I knew I would have to start seriously considering what my next move was. I picked up my traveling robes, stored the few remaining spell scrolls I had in my possession, and waved for Ahani to join us, as we all left the dorm of Dr. Silipin and the nurse Estelise together. The surrounding area of the University of Palamedes was dead silent at night, with the occasional patrol of a Morongo Knights sentry disguised as students, as Myrink pointed out to our group. As we entered, one such knight approached us. He donned a tattered tunic with a hood drawn low. The holes in the torso blatantly revealed he had a thin mail shirt beneath.
Who approaches?
Myrink simply waved him down and addressed him by name, Alizio. She mentions to him that we are here to see Valois and the mayor. The idea that all of Artois Valois' knights were in on the scheme and Kind's role in it was a bit of a surprise. He pointed us to the student exam wing that our party was very familiar with by this point in our crusade. We went down marble hall after marble hall until we got to the one containing Kind. When we entered, I was relieved to see Valois was by his bed. The two seemed to be discussing Kind's mayoral role in the city. Valois seemed to have prospects in the future involving politics. We interrupted, and Valois stood to attention.
Ah, brave Chevalier Myrink, Mr. Kycell, and Mademoiselle Raoul?
He saluted Myrink, nodded his head toward me, and gave Ahani a deep bow, offering to kiss her hand, which she bashfully obliged. Myrink then stepped forward and began to divulge the information I had told her this evening. The attack would need to commence tomorrow. I had been tasked with scrying the documents I'd brought before Lord Carnager in the library during the day, and the security surrounding the diplomat Aksur should be lax.
Ah, excellent. Our occupation of the university was limited already. Should we go over the plan once again?
Kind then began to direct our cabal. The operation would be Valouen, a few knights, and a dozen or so of the Vigabane Skeleton Legion scale the library walls and exfiltrate the prisoner. I keep Carnager in the library, so he and his vampiric thralls wouldn't arise and decimate our Andronian forces. After the successful retrieval, Myrink, guised as her royal guard alter ego, Aldegra, was to raise the alarm and draw the rest of the guards to the dungeon. Then, while the coast was clear, she was to rescue the diplomat's spouse, her very own sister, Soiree Chungus. As they escaped the castle, a few more skeletal warriors and knights would cause a scene far from the entrance to clear her path. At this point, my eyes panically darted between Myrink and Kind. Neither let a single sign of ulterior motive pass between them. Their plan to ruin the prisoner rescue in an effort to save Kind's son over Myrink's sister weighed heavy in my mind. What would be their excuse to Valouen and Aksur afterwards? Also, the pressing matter of retaliation from the Regelisod forces in the castle. The image of the demoniac satyr Fugazzi swarmed in my head. If he learned of our scheme and Kind's part in the betrayal, the thought of an even worse beating from him upon Kind was a grotesque image. Valouen paced in place with excitement, but this was when Myrink brought up my original concern.
So, Mayor Kind, what will your plans be upon our rescue? When Valouen's knights leave, you can't possibly stay in this town. The university will be swamped with investigating orcs and ogres, and you are in no position to flee very far.
Valouen then spoke up, kneeling before Kind, who was still in partial traction, but his wounds seemed far more restored than even earlier today.
Mayor Kind, you are welcome to return to Marchand with me and my forces. We can protect you while you recover, and even return to rescue your son in a few more weeks. According to Chevalier Myrink, the Levry de Chair may take him and his au pair to their base in Babeno. This is only a short boat ride from the Marchand capital.
This proposition startled Kind and Myrink. She had a quizzical look cross her face, as this option didn't seem to cross her mind, given she was simply preoccupied with saving Court's babysitter from a life similar to hers. However, out of the blue, Ahani spoke up. She mentioned that the young Regelisod prince, Jadaniston, was building a settlement to the north of Goldenrod. She heard of this during her time in the forges, along with the other dwarven workers of the castle. I recalled Carnager offhandedly referring to it as well. She went on to point out that a number of Goldenrod's citizens, and even some expats from the Scalamandre port to the west, were planning to settle there. If Kind was able to stay low for a day or so, then he could travel north, and make a new life for himself and his son. Myrink and Kind finally let a small sliver of their conspiracy slip as they offered a relieved glance to one another, but Valouen hadn't seemed to notice.
Well, I suppose it is your choice, Mayor Kind, but you, along with the rest of us, only have until tomorrow to decide. Bonne nuit, everyone.
With a bow, he left through the exam room swinging doors. The four of us remaining in the room waited for his feet to retreat before we began to discuss further. As the night moved on, Kind showed us his increasing mobility as the healing done by Estelise and Silibin sped his recovery with every passing hour, and we deliberated the possibility of him following Judeniston to the settlement, and possibly using the same disguise scroll we had been utilizing. When it grew late, and we only had half plans remaining at best, we called it a night and returned to the dorms. The following morning arose, the day of the attack. My first thought was that we hadn't actually established a specific time the event would begin. I was a little concerned, but decided to put my faith in Valouen, despite the fact I had a hand in his eventual betrayal. Ahani and Myrink dressed for the morning. As I waited them outside the dorm, Estelise and Silibin had decided to sleep in for the day, as they had no work in the school this morning, and Kind was looking better every passing moment. We approached the Mindus Castle, as if nothing was amiss. Myrink veered toward the main entrance as usual, and my library co-worker, Chinook the Draconid, waved me over as we approached the dungeon and library portcullis.
Ah, Kycell, I hear you're going to be working under me as a second chair scryer this evening. Try not to get overwhelmed by my document transferring abilities. Oh, and I see you are still arriving every morning with that mule dwarven girl. I figured that rattling guard who you've been philandering with would be enough for you, you cad.
Despite the derogatory language Chinook used in her direct presence, Ahani Rao, who walked alongside us, seemed too concerned with what we passed in the dungeon to throttle my coworker. Aksor was in his cell, but what bracketed him wasn't the usual drooling pair of half-orc guards. It was the prince of my home kingdom, the enormous, toad-like samazatory brute, Prince Dinge Pagus. Along with him was the young Regelisod princess we saw accompanying him in the carriage station all those months ago, the leopard-spotted Princess Wallabunga Regelisod. We kept walking past the cell so not to draw attention to ourselves, but as we continued, we saw a large swath of guards packed into Aksor's cell, along with the pair of royals, including that dreaded monster, Fugazzi, who looked on unimpressed as Dinge used his massive, warty green claws to lift the corpulent and struggling Aksor from the ground. This was the exact same gesture we had seen the prince perform just before pulping the carriage station manager back at the beginning of our journey.
Your soldiers are in my town. They are dead. Tomorrow you are dead.
Dinge's massive throat sac inflated with every exhalation, and a massive, sharp-toothed grin crest his entire face. He tossed Chungus to the hard floor of the dungeon, and the squeaky scream he let out as he fell led me to believe Dinge's heave must have resulted in a few broken bones. The prince then gestured a hooked, blackened claw to Fugazzi.
You watch him.
Fugazzi simply offered him a bow.
Hey, okay? Your Honor, your leash, you got my word, okay? You have my word. I'll quadruple the gods right now. You got that?
Dinge turned and stomped out of the cage, roughly grabbing the wrist of the petite cat-like princess, who flashed a look of placid boredom upon being forced to leave. He made his way out. Fortunately, our party was far beyond the cell and close to the entrance to our tower. Even Chinook was uncharacteristically unopinionated as he and I entered the Mindus Library. Hi, my name is Matthew Lewis, and I do the voice of Kycell along with all the additional voices in the Forgotten Minotaur King. I hope you enjoy the podcast and continue to listen into the future. If you want to support my content, please donate to my Patreon, Matthew Lewis Podcasts. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Matthew Lewis Podcasts, all one word. Follow me on Twitter at Matthew Lewis P. Or leave a positive maximum star review on your podcast app of choice. If you found this podcast, I assume you're familiar enough with the genre to know how important reviews are to the survival of a channel. And I hope you recommend this to your friends. Or if you didn't like it, you could recommend it to your enemies, and I'll teach them a lesson. Keep it sleazy, folks, and thank you.